Maybe you've thought about switching to Blue Sky Bio's implants, but you're not sure because you haven't had the chance to try them out in person and see for yourself. So I'm the type that when I'm on Amazon, when I'm on anything, I'm going to look at the reviews. I'm going to read the reviews, the good reviews, the bad reviews. I want to know exactly what I'm getting myself into. So I went on the 365 Digital Dentistry Facebook page and found a post of someone who said that they were finally looking to switch to Blue Sky Bio's implants. And someone asked on that thread, what makes one want to use Blue Sky Bio's implants over other clone or compatible systems? And what do they offer that larger name brand implants don't offer? I loved the responses here. This was awesome. One of the first responses was, better implants, better people, cost savings. Another one said, easy ordering, cheaper, cross-compatibility, innovation in the DIY CAD guided realm. Wade Pilling said, in my opinion, better service, better pricing, better cutting edge technology, better implant design, better platform design, and a model that is kinder to general dentists. And then Baron Grutter said, my reason for liking the Blue Sky Bio Max line over Nobel, number one was cost, $99 to $135 for the implant. Number two, 30% stronger platform design. He's never seen one of the Blue Sky Bio implants flower or split during placement, whereas some of the narrow platforms of other brands have done that in the past. Number three, universal platform with a much better inventory, so a lot better options. Number four, Dr. Sheldon and Albert, who are experienced clinicians who will help with nothing in return. So fantastic support at Blue Sky Bio. Number five, ease of ordering. And number six, no rep pressure. And he said these reasons are not necessarily listed in order of importance, but in order of most significant difference. So you can see that these people who have been placing these implants, they love the cost, they love the convenience. In many cases, they believe they're actually a superior implant. To try out your first set of Blue Sky Bio implants, go to blueskybio.com/store and check out their 6 lines of cutting-edge dental implants and compatible parts. Welcome to the Shared Practices podcast. This is an extremely special episode to me. So this is an interview with, according to our website, the exclusive owner of Shared Practices, Kristine Lowe. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
There was a lot of coercing. I came home and I was like, okay, if I make dinner and I clean up and I put the kids to bed, maybe Kristine will do an interview with me tonight.
Yeah, that kind of won me over.
Did that work?
Yes.
Okay.
It did work because I really didn't have the courage to come on. But you wanted me to, so
okay, well,
here I am. This
is, first off, just like a check-in, because some people are a little bit worried about you. So like last month, my buddy Caleb, I told him, I was like, yeah, we're closing on these practices and Shared Practices is growing and we're going to start a few other shows. We're bringing on another partner. And his first question was, how's Kristine?
Well, he kind of knows my past with this.
Yeah, no, it's been a bumpy road, and we know that I'm a little bit crazy, and I've been a little bit crazy for a long time. But I wanted to bring you on to tell from where we left off with George, which was about a month before closing, until now, which is about 3 weeks after closing. This is like May 19th, May 20th. I think today's the 20th, right?
Yeah.
It's when all those tornadoes were supposed to happen in Oklahoma. And so far there's only one. So when George and I talked, it was at the Dental Success Summit at the end of April. And after that, and I don't know how much of this you remember, the bank kept delaying. So Zions Bank, at first they said, yep, we can lend over 100% of collections. And we're like, awesome, this is amazing. We've got a bank who's willing to do this impossible deal. And then they came back and they said, just kidding, we can't do 100% of collections. We're going to need some money down and we're not going to be able to hit your initial close date, May 1st. And then they pushed things back again to May 15th. And then they pushed things back again and they were going to need more money. And there was one night in particular that I was just like, I came home so mad at Zions Bank because I felt like this was like a pattern, that I had found out that Zions Bank had done this to multiple people in the past, where they had promised one thing, and then once it was too late in the deal to back out, they changed things up and said, oh, just kidding, we need money down. Oh, just kidding. And this has become a pattern. And so I was really upset. Do you remember that at all?
You know, at first, when you reminded me of this about a week ago or a few days ago, I don't remember. I couldn't remember, but now I do remember. And I had this mixture of emotions because I've been on this crazy journey with you. And part of me was like a little relieved, like, okay, this is reality finally like turning its head into our lives. And like Richard's finally realizing that this is crazy, you know, but another part of me was just as upset because I was excited to have 3 practices. You know, I knew you could do it, but it was also like the perfect moment of reality, just like hitting you.
Yeah.
You know, and I almost felt like to you, you were just taking for granted how easy things had been.
Absolutely.
You know, and you were just kind of like, oh, here's the next thing falling into place. This must be, you know, my destiny, you know, in a way. But this was kind of the biggest major bump. And I knew bumps were going to come. So for me, it was almost inevitable, but I don't know.
It was like a reality check.
Yes.
Well, and like we said from the beginning, like this probably won't work. This probably shouldn't work, but let's see how far we can get. And lending was like one of those. We knew this was going to be an issue.
Absolutely. That was the biggest hurdle.
Yeah. For as complex of a deal as this was, and for our financial situation, for, you know, just.
You're in the Army.
I'm still in the Army. We knew it would be extremely difficult to find a lender. So I was pretty upset at this point. Not only because, you know, before they said we weren't going to need to bring money to the table, and now they were saying we were, but also because like it kind of made us look bad in front of the sellers. And it's amazing husband and wife team that we bought these practices from, and we had told them like, okay, it's going to close on May 1st, and so we're going to switch everything over to open dental, and we were starting to push all these plans, and it was getting kind of stressful because like they didn't have a letter in hand from the bank, and we were kind of worried, and we were trying to push plans and have everything all ready to go.
Right. And this is their baby. You know, these practices are so important to them, and we don't want to mess it up.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to drop the ball so early in the game. You wanted to show them that you're competent and you are business savvy and you have amazing partners and all these things. So it was embarrassing.
Yeah, it was.
You know?
And so it was frustrating. And I think that night I came home, and your mom was here and your grandma was here. And like, I was just so upset and frustrated. I ended up talking on my phone and like pacing around our backyard. Our backyard is like the smallest little chunk of land.
Oh, no privacy.
With no privacy. There's these like 2-foot fences. And so it's like you can see our 2 back neighbors, like their sliding doors are like less than 30 feet from our sliding door. So it's like they let their dogs out to go pee and poo, and we're like, hi, you know, you can see them right there.
From inside our house.
Yeah. And I'm like pacing around the backyard, having these heated conversations with my lawyer and with my partners. And I just remember being pretty upset, pretty frustrated. Ended up getting a hold of someone from Zions Bank through Matt Porter. So he gave me the contact information of, you know, the next level up, someone higher up. And, you know, he explained to me, which Hunter and Will knew all along. But because this Arkansas group of practices is so big, it then becomes like a much bigger deal, even though this group of 3 practices, so Hunter and Will have their 12 in Arkansas. There's these three here in Indy. If we were just buying them without Hunter and Will, first off, we wouldn't get financing. But second off, it'd be a lot less complex of a deal. And it trips all these layers of kind of regulation and due diligence and, you know, stuff that have to do with the bank and lending. And in the end, I was really frustrated with Zions for a while. In the end, they got the deal done. They lent the money. Like, we now own the practices, whereas so many other banks were just like, thanks, but no thanks.
Well, and you learned that when you talked to someone higher up.
Yeah.
Right? And that helped you realize, this is a lot of, just red tape that's normal. Anyone would have to go through this. It's just going to take time.
Yeah. No, and more than normal. Like, this is more red tape than average.
Okay.
And so it definitely kind of calmed me back down. I think Hunter and Will were like, yeah, we knew that. They knew that. They said they could deliver. They didn't deliver. They were frustrated. So at the end of the day, like, my lesson learned from all of this is, number one, banks tend to say one thing, and sometimes they can deliver and sometimes they can't. And as long as you have that expectation up front that maybe, even though they're saying we might not need to bring money to the table, maybe we will. And B, even though they say it's going to be on this time frame, maybe it's going to take longer. Like, and we just kind of believed them. We just took them at their word that they said, yes, we can deliver this much money by this time. And it took longer. And in the end, they couldn't.
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
Is it possible to get pre-approved like you do for a home for a mortgage when it comes to buying practices?
Most banks know. Lendeavor, who has kind of been on the show before, and I really wanted them to do this deal. They do that. They have this cool pre-approval process, and they have like everything really streamlined. And they do give you like a pre-approval letter, but they like did not want to touch this deal at all. They were like, thanks, but no thanks.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, no, there's a way to do it, but it just didn't apply to us.
Okay.
So that was kind of the first major hurdle was lending and like getting through like, okay, once we finally had that letter in hand from the bank, it was like this sigh of relief from everyone because now our sellers knew there's actually the money that we said that we were going to bring to the table. We can actually bring it to the table. And we could proceed with closing. Like, it was like, okay, this is going to happen. And then about a week before closing, we hit one more major road bump. And I really can't talk about it on the podcast or go into any details. But I screwed up. Like, I screwed up some things and I said some things that I shouldn't. And it changed the deal. The deal got kind of messy and it got a little bit bumpy. And for a minute, we thought it wasn't going to happen. We thought this was all going to fall through. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show was because up to this point, you had been very supportive of this, but you also kind of felt like you couldn't tell me no. Talk to me about that. Why do you feel that? Why did you feel that way?
I think it's so funny that you're interviewing me about this because you're being pretty vulnerable. But I guess it all comes back to during your residency, I did not want you to do your residency because dental school felt so long, and I knew that doing a 2-year AGD was going to add more time in the Army. Yeah. And I wanted to go live by my family. Yeah. And so I knew that's going to be 6 years away from home. I really am close with my parents, close with my grandparents. I wanted our kids to have the same experience I had growing up of being close to extended family. Yeah. So, when you decided to do your 2-year AGD, you really had to sell it to me. And it's not.
And you weren't sold. I didn't do a good job.
No, but now I realize the benefits that you got from it. But
and you were right. It was a painful 2 years for our family.
It was the hardest years of our marriage for sure,
hands down.
Just because I had aspirations that I had to put on hold, and eventually just said, screw it. I'm still going to go. I'm still going to go work. And that made things way harder. But I think it made the time go by fast, at least. Well, but that was painful.
That was extremely painful.
Yeah. We didn't come to after that experience, we both decided we're going to talk about things before we make a big decision and really hash out if we're both dedicated to it. Yeah. Otherwise, we don't want this
to repeat itself.
Yes.
Yeah, it's bad enough to go through like a really hard experience, but to not be on the same page about it. And you're like, I told you so. This sucked. Like,
I know. The whole time I just had no empathy for you.
Well, and then I started a podcast on top of it all.
Yes. Oh, of course. Yeah. And if it weren't for George, I don't know.
Well, if it weren't for you, we wouldn't have found George.
Oh, I'm so grateful for him.
Yeah.
I need to meet him and his wife and his kids.
Yeah. No, there was that moment where mid-residency, we hit a breaking point where you're like, you got to choose between residency, family, and podcast. Choose 2 out of the 3. Mm-hmm. And if you hadn't made that ultimatum, I wouldn't have found George as a partner.
Well, and back then your podcast was not, you hadn't delegated all these things to help your podcast run. You were doing all the editing.
Yeah.
And that took up so much time.
It did.
And I think you were even transcribing them yourself at first.
I don't think I transcribed them.
You didn't? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it just took so long.
It did.
And it was a learning curve too, I feel like.
Yeah.
But once we saw how beneficial your podcast was, I think that's what really made me go, okay, this is not just a hobby. This is making a difference. So we got to keep it. Okay, fine. Was
there a moment when you realized that like it wasn't just me talking to a closet? She doesn't want to tell this story.
I know what. So we're at church and I'm in the nursery.
This is right as we were moving to Oklahoma.
Yeah. So we're in Texas and it's like one of our last Sundays before we moved to Oklahoma. And I'm in the nursery and this guy comes in with his little girl, or maybe it's a little boy. I don't remember. But this kind of young guy around our age. And he...
I was out of state.
Yeah, you were out of state for something.
I was in Oklahoma, like taking a load up to our new house.
Oh, wow. So yeah, this was really right close before to the end.
Moved. Yeah.
And I'm talking to him and and his wife or him says that he's a dentist. And I'm like, whoa, you're a dentist? Are you in the military? Are you in the army here? Because there were so many dentists in our ward. We had so many dentists. And he said, no, but, I'm like, I don't remember if he was an associate.
He wasn't an army dentist.
No,
he just came out to like Killeen to practice.
Yeah. And I wish I knew his name because maybe he'll listen to this and he'll laugh. But it was my first experience with him being, I told him, oh, yeah, my husband has a podcast. I don't know if you've heard of him, Richard Lowe. And he looks at me and just like his jaw drops and he goes, the Richard Lowe. We listen to your podcast. We listen to it the whole drive here, me and my wife in the car. And I just couldn't believe it. And it just was my first, celebrity moment of Richard.
So just to be clear, there is no such thing as dental podcast celebrity, but it was very satisfying for me to hear this.
He was he was on cloud 9.
I was so glad because up to this point, like it was really like, this isn't real. Like your podcast, yeah, you think, but it was like...
there were numbers. There was lots of evidence, lots of downloads.
Yeah.
You had people, I would come to the computer and your email or your messenger would be up and someone would be saying, hey, I really appreciate your podcast. I bought a practice or, and for me, that was, wow.
Yeah.
This is a big deal.
No, and it was very satisfying to get like that reaction while I wasn't there so that like she could take the full brunt of it. It was great.
Well, it was just good to know because it was a rough road.
Yeah. No, it was hard. Year. It was really hard. And that whole second year of residency where you said, even after we brought George on, you're like, I'm sick of waiting for you to come home. I'm going to get a job teaching. And like within a week from that decision that you made, you had like a job.
Yeah, that's the danger of anyone who has a teaching degree.
Well, science teaching degree in a high need area.
Yeah. There's every area is a high need area.
Yeah.
In teaching.
Yeah.
So yeah, I learned that lesson. That was a good learning experience for me. But
it was, and that last year of residency, when you were teaching, I was finishing my master's thesis, just finishing residency. That's when I failed my PT test. Yes. I think that was like the darkest year of my life.
Humbling.
Hands down. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a good humbling year for us. I think we both have egos and we needed that.
Yeah, no, it was a little smackdown.
Yeah.
We definitely needed it. It made Fort Sill, Oklahoma, which otherwise could be like a really crappy assignment if someone was like, I'm not going to California or I'm not going to somewhere fancy.
Yeah.
We were just happy to be not at Fort Hood in residency.
Absolutely. And we just ate it up. We loved Oklahoma. I still miss it.
Yeah.
I was texting friends today, like making sure they're okay from the tornadoes. And I don't even think the tornadoes or anything happened in that area we were in. But I just thought, I wanted to live there. I live there.
No, so it just was the relative misery made our life seem that much better. So anyways, the whole residency, the fact that we weren't on the same page in our marriage about the 2-year residency made us really want to make these decisions moving forward. However, when we agreed to move to Indiana to be close to your family, and I decided to give up clinical dentistry in the Army full time, you kind of felt like that when this 3 practice thing came up, at first you were like, no, let's not do this.
Yeah, I was very averse at first because you found this deal. It was the first deal you came across with the broker.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, let's just wait. Let's just wait for other deals, but one of the practices is here in Brownsburg.
Yeah.
Not really. That's tough.
It's like less than 5 minutes from our house.
Yeah. That's not going to happen again for a long time.
Yeah.
Well,
and we wanted to be here in Brownsburg. And so this made it make more sense for us to move close to your family and to settle down here too as well. So it kind of locked in our family situation as well.
But back to what you were saying, I felt so grateful and indebted to you for the fact that you gave up clinical dentistry just to be here by my family. I wasn't very vocal about my opinion at first when it came to these practices. Yeah.
And it was hard because it's kind of in this, like, you even told me, like, I don't feel like I could tell you no because I don't know as much about these practices. Like, I don't know as much about the deals.
I don't have context for what this means. I don't listen to your podcast.
Fair enough.
I don't even know if I'll listen to this episode.
No, you don't have to. You're living it. You don't listen to your podcast is what you mean.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
She no longer owns the whole podcast. George and I now split it.
Good thing.
Yeah. So we just need to update the website. So you kind of felt like you kind of had to go along with this, even though I really wanted your input and I wanted you to express your concerns. At the same time, there was this underlying sense of, it's hard to know if this is a good deal or not, or if we should do this or not. But B, also, like, because we'd sacrificed so much to get here, you wanted to be very supportive of this. Right.
And I was kind of letting it take its course, like I said, with reality. Just let reality turn its head.
Yeah. Yeah. So about a week out from close, when crap hit the fan and the deal kind of shifted for a minute, I was ready to walk away. And I actually told Hunter and Will that I was okay with walking away.
Right. I think you're a little bit more aware of what you're walking into.
Yeah. No, that week leading up to that moment was like the most stressful, like way more stressful. Like I said, I was pretty angry mid-month at Science. By that point, when I was ready to walk away, I'd been through
nothing to do with the bank.
Had nothing to do with banking. But I'd been through like a ringer of emotions to the point where walking away like felt amazing. Like it felt like I decided to walk away. I said a prayer and then I like took a nap. I think that Wednesday afternoon, and I just like felt so good. I was just like, "Hun, I feel like maybe it just wasn't meant to be."
Maybe we shouldn't have gone forward.
maybe we shouldn't have done this. And we talked about it. And you voiced these concerns that you were like, I kind of was afraid to shoot this down. I wanted to be supportive. And fortunately, Hunter and Will are wise in so many ways. And when I told them that I was going to walk away, they were amazingly supportive of us in that decision.
Yeah, they gave you some space to kind of just take it in,
process, and they were also wise in that they're like, okay, let's sleep on it. Let's just give it a minute. But they also didn't want to like convince me to come back into the deal. They didn't want like a reluctant partner that felt trapped or obligated. And through all of this, I was super grateful to see their true colors as partners and how supportive and kind of looking out for our best interest they were. And also even the sellers, like, the sellers are just good people. And I haven't mentioned their names on the show just because I want to respect their privacy, but just seeing their experience, their sincerity, their level-headedness, their supportiveness, everything.
Yeah. And that was part of, I really like them a lot. And that was kind of I got sad when you were thinking about walking away because I knew how much all of us or all of you guys had.
No, and I understood what this would mean to them for if we were to walk away and the deal were to fall apart. Luckily they did have another offer at one point, but this was kind of the offer they preferred. And who knows if they would still be able to move forward with that other offer. So I really would feel bad in a lot of ways, not only to Hunter and Will, but also to the sellers if we did have to walk away. So we decided to sleep on it. We also were thinking about the alternatives. Like, okay, if we do walk away, I really do want to practice dentistry sooner rather than later,
Yeah.
Doing that residency. I don't want to.
My fear, I think I brought this up to you, is I was scared you wouldn't do dentistry
until I got out of the army.
Until you actually owned a practice.
Right.
Because in your mind, you kept thinking, well, why would I moonlight? Why would I be an associate when I can just own, Well, because of all these interviews you've done. You know? But
and there's nothing wrong with being an associate. However, like I said on last episode, this is a very roundabout way to get a good moonlighting gig, but it is a really good moonlighting gig. Getting paid to practice in these offices, having a situation where everyone understands my schedule and my commitment to the Army, and they understand that my Army commitment comes first. Having practices where they're referring out the procedures that I want to do so that my schedule would be filled up with endo and surgery and implants. So it was a combination, and then being a part owner and being able to build equity. Like, it's a combination of all these things where, my alternative was I was looking at one of these 24-hour dental places. It's like a media dent type place. And it just was like so depressing to think about that, to think about practicing on the side in a situation where you don't control the variables and you kind of you don't know if it's going to be good or not. You're not building something long-term, which would have been okay. But that was kind of the alternative. And really what George brought up, which I thought was a great alternative strategy, was the idea of traveling between some offices and being like a traveling specialist between these offices. So get some implant kits and the equipment that we would use and build up a traveling pseudo specialist practice, rather than settling with just one practice. And I thought that was probably our next best option, but that also just made me like feel so tired. Like, I don't know why. I'm not as excited about like practicing in a bunch of different offices that aren't my practices.
Right. And the beauty of this deal was there's an office manager, and Hunter and Will are taking care of all the accounting and that side of things.
Yeah.
So really, this is such a great way for you to have some mentorship as far as running a practice, because they have all that experience and you can still keep up your skills. And where else are we going to find that when you get out of the Army?
Right.
I don't know if that's going to be another option or opportunity.
Totally. And the alternative, the other thing is we could always wait 2 years and find something then. But that I think you really were afraid that by the time 2 years went by, my skills would start to slip, or, I would just kind of have to find something else. So all of these things are going through our head. We decided to sleep on it. And that next morning, I was still kind of set on walking away. And I was like, how do you feel about this? What are you thinking? And do you remember what you said to me?
I think I was along the lines of, I have no say.
No, you told me that next morning, I want you to do this.
But first, I was nervous to tell you what I thought, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, for the longest time, you were nervous to tell me what you thought.
Yeah.
And it was only when I was like completely willing to walk away, and I didn't care one way or the other.
You were finally almost going to walk away completely. I was like, wait. No, we got to do it.
Yeah.
We got to do it. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
The thought of walking away just felt so wrong to me.
Well, and
I don't feel as educated with all the details and the context as you do and everyone else does either. So
no, and for me, I mean, yeah, we have a lot of context to make this decision, but still at the end of the day, like, stuff could go sideways, the market could shift. In the grand scheme of things, we're just taking our best guess at this as well.
Right. And I recognize that I was going to take you away from home
Yeah.
But the beauty of us living by family means I'm not lonely.
Right.
You know, I have a support system when you have to work, and you can't work that late.
Right.
Like you did at residency because it's a dental office.
Right. There's not going to be patients there till 10 p.m.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can send things off to a lab. You don't have to construct a denture from scratch.
Right.
You know, so
yeah,
it seems doable.
It's definitely doable. And we reset expectations in terms of hours that I was going to work. And, you know, originally we were thinking multiple nights per week and then every other Friday. Now the goal is for this first year to do Thursday evenings and every other Friday. And so that was a good reset of expectations. But I want to come back to the point that it wasn't until we were willing to walk away that you truly felt heard, and it was you that brought me back into this deal. Like I literally was ready to walk away and be done with it, and it was you telling me.
Yeah, that was scary to me.
Yeah,
because I know how much it meant to you.
Yeah,
and how obsessed you are with this. So you have a podcast about it.
Sure. And
I knew you kind of wanted to have, you know, an experience to share with your listeners, but more importantly, you're an entrepreneur at heart. You always have been. And this is your dream, your goal. And it's my dream too, with you. And to see you walk away from that was really, really confusing and sad, you know, when I felt like so many doors had been opened that probably shouldn't have been.
Right.
You know.
There was a long chain of miracles that brought us to this point.
Absolutely.
And it was confusing to then get shut down at the last minute.
Yeah.
But all of the kind of last minute ups and downs and back and forth was worth it to me if we were on the same page moving forward.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that a lot. I really do.
For me, it felt so much better. Like, even though we went through a roller coaster, it felt
we needed that.
We needed that.
Yeah.
As a marriage and as a team, because there are going to be hard times. So, with all of that, then the practices close, and I had to be at Fort Knox. So this is literally like 3 days after my 3 weeks at Fort Knox. So right as the practices were closing, the Army sent me down to Fort Knox, Kentucky to learn how to be a healthcare recruiter. And so May 1st happened that first week down at Fort Knox. I couldn't be there for the close of these practices at all. So Hunter and Will drove up. They were at each of these practices as they closed. They transitioned, answered all the questions, made sure all the codes were switched over. We didn't switch to open dental on day one, which was our original plan. We're going to do that here on June 1st coming up. So it was the weirdest experience on May 1st to just be like in my barracks room after class and be like, well, I guess we closed today. I guess we bought these practices. So I texted them. I was like, do you guys want to go to dinner tonight? We met up in Louisville for some good barbecue. That made it feel a little bit more real. But I also loved how concerned with my expectations they were. They're like, this is not going to be...
That's a good concern.
It was a good concern.
Yeah.
Well, people think, multi-practice, like someone who owns multiple practices is like ringing in the dough. It's just like this sweet lifestyle. They did so much work to close on these 3 practices. They are an acquisition machine. And like, for me, buying this group of 3 with them was less work than buying one on my own. Because they did all the heavy lifting. But like hours and hours and hours and conversations and arguments and, bothering the bank and negotiating all these things and setting these things up in the background.
Driving on their behalf.
Driving back and forth.
And they visited everybody and
answering my questions and late night conversations. And they did so much work. And when we had dinner that night, they said, people think multi-practice is super profitable. They're like, realistically, if both of us just went and produced ourselves at a fine-tuned, well-run practice, we would make more than being multi-practice owners once you pay all of the expenses and split things up.
Yeah, I'm glad they told you that because that opened my eyes as well.
Yeah.
I realized we're not going to see much income from this at first.
Yeah.
You were telling me because we need to kind of reinvest and just put something away in this business.
And just assume, because with a group this size, if something catastrophic happens at one of those practices, you can kind of smooth things over with income from the other two, but it's also, there's bigger swings.
Right.
And if the economy, shifts or all these different things that can happen, we just have to assume in our marriage and our lifestyle right now, we're both driving used cars that we own outright. We're renting a smaller home than you would like.
Yeah.
you want chickens and land and a little bit bigger house.
I'm so spoiled rotten. Yeah. I think after being in Oklahoma and having that acre
it's like 0.75.
Yeah. But
it took a long time to mow, but it was nice.
But I was going to have chickens and such a silly dream, but
no, we're going to have chickens. We're not giving up on the chickens.
Like anywhere else in the world, you can just have chickens and you don't have to own anything.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you do, but
no, I'm sure you don't. But eventually, so we've put off some chicken dreams. We're living in this small home with
it's a nice
home. It's not.
It's built in the 90s,
Yeah.
It's strong.
With a small little backyard. It'll get us through. Once we get out of the Army, we'll kind of have a better idea of what everything's going to look like. But it was just really good to have expectations. Like, we're just pretending like we're living off the Army income for the next 2 years. And just going to kind of save and stow and play things by ear.
Because there is some risk.
There is risk.
No,
absolutely. So let's talk about what are the things that you are scared of now with all of this.
Oh boy.
Are you afraid of anything?
Question.
Are you afraid of anything here?
I guess if the economy takes a turn.
Sure.
And people go to the dentist less, or they just want an extraction and not a root canal because they can't afford,
right,
the better care. If the staff has some kind of fallout, if maybe a dentist or a hygienist or any of the office staff suddenly quits or gets blasted on some kind of chatter page on Facebook,
sure.
Bad press.
Brownsburg chatter.
Yeah.
our town's local Facebook page is kind of a dumpster fire. It is a very negative place.
Oh yes, most of them are.
Yeah.
I've joined every single surrounding community page.
Yeah.
And especially the ones where the other practices are, just to kind of
see
stock and make sure no one's gonna blast
badmouth the practices.
Yes, the associates or anybody there, but so far so good.
Yeah.
But I've even searched the past to see if in the past
you looked for our practices, see if they came up.
Yeah, but so that's a fear. Maybe not being able to make the loan payment.
Yeah,
it's a pretty big loan payment every month.
It is
for all three practices. And what happens if you don't? Does the interest just get out of control? What happens? So some of the stuff is just so over my head. I don't even know. But I guess the biggest fear is we could go bankrupt if everything just flops. You could get deployed.
So this
is just a continuous stream. Want me to keep going?
No, I mean, my biggest fears center around the Army. I think so. Supposedly right now in my position, I'm in a non-deployable position. But the Army, supposedly the Army changes their minds. And, I've done far more travel in this job here recruiting than I've done in any previous job.
I think we didn't expect that. We knew there were going to be things we wouldn't expect with this new position, but
it's been a lot.
We're taking it with stride because we're here.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're making it work. And fortunately, I kind of really like recruiting.
Yeah. You're really good at it. I knew you would be.
I haven't actually recruited anyone, so I don't know if you can say that.
I love talking.
I love networking.
Yes. You're really good at networking.
But I'm afraid that, right now my commander understands, he's on board. That's my company commander, my battalion commander understands, and he's on board. But if we have a change of commander and they're like, well, what's this person doing? No, they can't practice every other Friday.
Variable.
That's one of my biggest fears is a change of command and a less understanding commander, or like our numbers aren't great. So our station, our company and our station don't put in enough applicants. And recruiting is one of those when you're hitting your numbers and you're recruiting enough people, they give you a lot of liberty and a lot of freedom, especially in medical recruiting. But when you're not hitting your numbers, like they can make you stay late on the evenings or make you come in on weekends. Like the Army still owns me. And if we're not performing, they can hold stuff over us.
Right. And you have a clause in your agreement.
We do. And
about deployment.
Totally.
What they would do.
We've baked into the partnership agreement a clause that if I deployed, it would shift the structure of our partnership, and Hunter and Will would kind of take things over even a little bit more. And then when I got back, I would kind of buy back and we'd go back to the way things were before. But and so I couldn't have more understanding partners than Hunter and Will. They get that the Army comes first. But some of my concerns, like I really want to be able to produce in these practices, and getting the time and having the speed are like the two things that I'm worried about. That, the Army, we thought we could do this, and then the Army like starts saying no, or we're in trouble, or our station's under scrutiny. And so I can't take that time off and produce as much as I wanted to. So that's a big fear of mine. Another big fear of mine is that we're going to get some Me Too artists here, where not Me Too, the sexual harassment women. Kristine's a little confused. She's like, what is going on here? Where's this going? No, other Army or Navy or Air Force dentists who decide that recruiting is a great way to get out of the Army and a great way to buy a practice.
That thought was going through my mind as soon as you were talking about that. Yeah.
Because
starting a trend.
Well, I don't want this to be like a thing. They're like, well, Dr. Lowe did it. And so it's like, that means everyone can do it. Like if you're in the military, know that most of the time recruiting gigs don't line up with you getting out of the Army. They want people who are experienced, but who are staying in. And this is like a broadening assignment.
They don't open it up for dentists. Usually they don't open it for dentists. You're supposed to be a nurse doing your job.
It is. They're opening it a little bit more moving forward.
But I think it's benefited them having a dentist in this position.
No, and
when you go to the conferences.
Yeah.
No,
totally.
Actual dentist there.
And like I said, if I can put some more dentists in, we can prove that to them. But just getting dentists who say that point to me as an example of it's okay to own in the Army. And the biggest concerns with owning in the Army, so from my research and the legal stuff I looked into, and the people I've talked with, TRICARE is a big thing. So normally the Army has TRICARE, and sometimes if you're around a military post, they'll refer stuff off post. So it's like, we can't do these crowns or we can't do this CBCT. So they send it off post to get it done. If you're on post practicing and off post practicing and referring to yourself, there could be some legal issues there. So that's number one. We don't have that issue because we're not near a post and we don't take TRICARE. So that's problem number one. We don't have to worry about that. Problem number two is abandonment of patients. So anyone who buys a dental practice kind of assumes ownership of those patient records, especially if they're the sole provider there. So if you're the only doc there producing, if you were to get deployed, then you would be abandoning your patients. So in this case, I mean, literally these practices have doctors in them that are fully functioning without me, and I don't have to add hours to them to make them survive. So I could deploy and it wouldn't change current operations. So that's something that the Army cares about. They don't want us to abandon patients. And then the last thing, there's three things. Oh, the last thing is that your command knows that you're not going over the moonlighting limits. So there's 16 hours a week is the max you're supposed to moonlight.
I didn't know that.
That's the MedCom policy. And that your command knows and that they're in the loop and that you're kind of being above board with all of that. So as long as you're doing those three things, it's the Army doesn't prevent people from having a business.
And I'm glad.
Yeah.
Because there's got to be something else after the Army.
Totally.
For all those veterans.
No, and lots of people set up businesses that while they're still in the military. Right. In residency, you aren't allowed to moonlight or to have a business. And that's why you had a business. You had shared practices. So gracious of you to host this, own this podcast for us, hon.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Everyone say thank you to Kristine. So those are kind of like my Army concerns are change of command and or people who try and copycat and then point to me as a reason why they should be able to do it.
So that's your big hint.
Yeah, don't do that, guys.
Yeah.
This is, we knew that if this deal didn't work out, I probably wasn't going to be able to buy something before I got out of the Army. Like, it's just pretty rare and pretty weird, and financing is awful.
I've heard of it happening.
I've heard of someone doing like a startup scenario as they were exiting the Army, and it kind of went sideways for a minute, and was a little bit scary. And that person was under investigation for a minute. But they had everything in place and they had all the right documents and they'd done everything the right way. So that investigation cleared. I've heard of other people who own a practice and they have a partner and maybe they're reserves and then they get activated and they go active duty for a period of time and they still own their practice while they're active duty.
Oh, that's interesting.
But their partner takes over for them.
Huh.
So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, the Army would love that. If there's any oral surgeons out there who want to deploy, we can make that happen.
Nice.
And that's
two birds with one stone right now.
Well, no, that's exactly this. Yeah, I am. ABR, always be recruiting. No, the person I was talking about there was an oral surgeon, Kristine.
ABR.
It's not a thing. So yeah, that was an oral surgeon who did that, who had a partner and they went active duty for a period of time. So, other fears I have, talked about being able to produce. I'm afraid I'm just not going to be fast enough. It's like, yeah, I can do surgical extractions. I can do implants. I can do endo, but I'm not an endodontist. I'm not a periodontist. Yeah,
you weren't usually the fastest in residency.
I'm not Merkley.
No,
you know?
Like you were always having people come help you at the end of the day.
Okay, not always.
Not always.
But yes, late duty was a thing.
Yes, you'd buy people lunch, and
I definitely made the most requested late duty board multiple times. We had a board where we kept track of who went over and required. So in the military, your dental assistants don't work through lunch and don't stay after. At least in residency, they don't. Because they have like certain hours and they can't work over those hours because it's against the union rules. So as residents, you have to step in and assist and help clean up. And so they would announce at the end of lunch or at the beginning of lunch or at the end of the day, if a resident was still going in a surgery or a procedure, they'd be like late duty needed, 1 senior to pros, 1 senior to perio, 2 juniors to oral surgery. And it's like, you'd have to go cover down. And yeah, I needed some late duty. You also chose
pretty complicated cases.
I had some harder cases.
You were learning.
And I just...
you're very meticulous.
I'm a perfectionist, yeah, which is a good and bad thing. Yeah. So...
it's good. That's why we're a good team.
Yeah. No, Kristine is definitely...
not a perfectionist.
Less of a perfectionist.
Like, done is better than perfect is my motto.
Yeah. No, for sure. So we make a great team in that way. So that's another concern. Financial liability... Yeah, this is a big note. It's costs a lot to run these 3 practices.
And do you know what you keep telling people? Have you said this on your podcast?
What?
If we go bankrupt, it's okay. We're still in our 30s.
That was what my dad said was when we were still in Oklahoma, when we were like literally moving from Oklahoma to Indiana. And like the house was all packed and I was having these late night conversations with Hunter and Will and looking at these practices. And I had a phone call with my dad and he was like, well, you're still in your 30s and you're a dentist. So worst case scenario, if you go bankrupt, you'll be fine. Yeah. And I'm like, thanks, Dad. I don't know what that means. I don't know if I should take that as a thumbs up.
Admittedly said that when people ask me, like people that don't know us very well, who are just getting to know us, and they find out that we bought a practice. We can say a practice.
Yeah. Right now, our story... We've gotten like less and less public with our story, like especially with like people at church or friends here in the area. They're like, so are you buying a practice?
They're just so confused.
Everyone's really confused. It's
really hard to explain.
And so we're just like, yeah, we're buying a practice.
Yeah,
and
you know that
I'll
one?
just work part-time on the side.
Yeah.
And then I'll get out of the army and I'll work
They're like,
more.
how? How can you buy a practice if he's in the army?
And we're just like,
because there's already associates at the practice.
It's a long story.
Yeah, they just are so
There's
confused.
a good office manager.
It's okay.
I've got partners.
It's a really good question, actually.
Yeah.
They should be concerned for us, but no. It's funny, but...
Yeah, no, and out of all of this, so some lessons to be learned for sure. Good partners and good people. I'm so glad we have the partners that we have, that we have the sellers that sold to us, that are just all around such good people. That's made a huge difference. Another big lesson for me for all of this has been the network of the podcast. Having a network in place. There was times where I reached out to Brian Hanks. This is a shout out to Brian Hanks. At one point, we thought the bank was going to need a third-party valuation on all 3 practices ASAP. And it was like a Friday. So I called Brian Hanks, and he was totally willing to drop everything and do the valuations for us and turn it around and be done by Monday. He was like, yeah, it'll get me out of this like opera thing that I didn't really want to go to, or I can't remember what it was that he was going to have to skip. But it didn't end up needing his help, but it was so
he was willing
to. Wayne Opplinger, who we had on the show, hooked me up with David Cohen, my attorney, who was phenomenal for this whole transition, understood what we were trying to do, made sure that the legal documents reflected the type of partnership that we were trying to achieve, and that we had the right provisions in there, and just so many people came through because of the podcast. And so it was a huge testament to me of the power of podcasting. And we're going to have, spoiler alert, we're going to have some ways that if people want to contribute to shared practices and want to be on a podcast, we're going to have more podcasts coming out soon. So there are so many benefits to podcasting and building that network, but also even if you're not podcasting, just networking well in advance of when you need these connections. So people might say like, I don't want to learn about all this crap. I don't want to talk to all these people because it's like 2 years out, or but it's never too early.
Oh, I can see how this would take a long time.
Yeah.
Just get all your, ducks lined up in a row. So.
Yeah. No, and I was just so grateful that we had all of this in place. And then, some other big lessons learned was like just having a vision of like, hey, let's try this crazy thing. And really long term, I've been saying, and you guys have heard this before, and I apologize for me saying it again, like I would love to have a group of 2 to 3 practices where I can do the specialty procedures that I love there and run and own those practices. And the fact that this is coming true so much sooner than everything else blows my mind. And I guess we still haven't fully updated where we are with these practices. So
it's still so early in the game.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely more bumps ahead for sure.
Well, I haven't set
and we know
foot
that.
in 2 out of the 3 of them.
Haven't,
I've only been to the Scottsburg office, the office that's about an hour and a half south of here.
It'll be entertaining not entertaining, but it'll be interesting for people to hear your experiences and just kind of have, I don't know,
come along the journey with us.
Yes, exactly.
Well, so let me tell this part of the story then. So it was last Monday. We got Monday off because I've been in training for 3 weeks straight. I just got off this last Friday. So that's why I haven't been in these offices, is because I've been at Fort Knox. But I had Monday off. So I came home for the 3-day weekend. And on the way back, stopped by Scottsburg at the end of the day. And they kind of didn't know I was coming. And like, it's a smaller office. It's a 5-chair office. Love the doctor there. Small team, great people, small town dentistry. And I just kind of like dropped in and they're like, oh, hey. And then they're like, yeah, this is Dr. Lowe. And they're like, remember, Dr. Hunter and Dr. Will, they came through and this is like the 3rd partner. And the whole team was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like some of them, some of them kind of knew who I was. And the other ones were just I
could have been a fly on the wall.
They were kind of just like, okay, another doctor partner who owns the practice who isn't here. And for me, it was like making sure that our doctor there had everything that he needed and We're looking through their endo supplies because I'm going to start doing endo there. I think that's the first practice where I'm going to start practicing. And they're excited because they refer out, and it's kind of like a 45-minute drive, to the nearest endodontist. So people have to either wait a while or get referred out. And so to be able to do this in their office, they were kind of excited about that. And I'm excited to do endo there. I think it's going to be the most straightforward, like every other Friday, go down to Scottsburg, do a day's worth of endo.
I think those will be your favorite days of the week.
I'm excited. Even though it's going to be an hour and a half drive there and an hour and a half drive back, it'll be a full day off that I take. And so I'll be able to drive out early in the morning, and then I'll just be back a little bit later.
Just like record a podcast or listen to a podcast on the way there and back.
No, we'll make good use of the commute. There's not a problem there. But it's just kind of crazy. It's like I still haven't been to Bolt, and I still haven't been to Anderson because the one here in Brownsburg, the one up in Anderson, because I just haven't had time because I've been at training. And
you don't want to just bop in without kind of checking first with.
Yeah, we'll coordinate it.
Yeah, just coordinate everything.
Did I tell you that we have a 4-day weekend this weekend?
Oh yeah.
Did I tell you that?
Oh, so you had a 3-day, but just
no. This coming weekend.
Yeah.
So I've got. Is it Memorial Day? What's this weekend? Yeah. So the Army is giving us 4 days. They're giving us Friday and Monday off. So I'm going to try and see if on Monday I can go by Bolt.
That'll be perfect.
But is Monday Memorial Day?
Yeah, they might.
They're probably going to be closed on Memorial Day. No. So I don't even know when. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. You need to ask off a day of work, Yeah. Kind of hard to do.
Well, no, I can do morning or lunch or something like that. We'll figure it out. So, well, cool. Well, Hun, thank you for coming on the show. I know this is uncomfortable for you. And
it wasn't too bad.
You did really good.
I don't think I'll listen to it, though.
No, they're hard to listen to. It's hard to listen to yourself. You did great. You did awesome.
Thanks. You made it fun.
It was a lot of fun. Well, cool. Well, hopefully this was special for you guys, and hopefully you got to kind of see the inside scoop on for what is for us what has been a very crazy journey that we didn't expect to happen the way it's happened, but it's been like we said, a strong series of miracles, and we're excited to see where it goes. So thank you for being on the show, and we'll talk with you next week on the Shared Practices podcast. Okay, time for some Facebook reviews of Q Optics. The first one here is regret. This is someone who wished they could have had Q Optics Loop. They said, don't do, and they said a company name that we won't mention here, but it rhymes with fiber optic. Don't do fiber optic. Their customer service has been terrible for me and buddies from my same school. If I had the option, I definitely would have gone with Q Optics. Another one here by Setu. She says, I've researched and tried all of the different brands of loops, and Q Optics are the best loops, hands down. I got the prismatic and have noticed a huge difference in my work and posture. I like what Nick Hill did here. He said, a few classmates and I met the Oroscoptic, Surgitel, Designs for Vision, and Q Optics rep for lunch, each one on a separate day. Good call. That would have been bad to just invite them all for a big rumble. He says, I liked the Q Optics product the most lightweight, great design, no need for side shields since the frames are OSHA compliant, amazing customer service, and optical quality works well for me. I purchased the 3.5x non-prismatic. Okay, last review. Laura said, I have Q Optics Prismatic 4.0 and they are the best investment I've made in dental school. This was a post on a dental student Facebook page, and so there's a lot of like, my school didn't offer Q Optics, and then there's people saying, just buy them anyways. Like, this is 100% worth it. You're using these every single day. It's your neck, it's your back, it's the quality of your work. It's worth the investment no matter what, whether you're a dental student, whether you're a new dentist, whether you're an established dentist. These are just fantastic loops. Check them out at qoptics.com. Email sales@qoptics.com with the promo code SP19 for a discount on your loops and light combo.